Welcome to the So Much More podcast, where we talk with people in the custom window treatment, soft home furnishings industry, and so much more. I'm your host, Seal DeGuglielmo. My guest on the podcast today is Sue Moran. She is the owner of Eaton Interiors, LLC. Sue's a window treatment retailer who enjoys designing and selling soft furnishings as well as blinds, shutters, and shades. I've known Sue for a number of years. She was one of the first people I met at my first WCAA meeting. And Sue's business has evolved quite a bit over the years. She started out as a retail designer workroom. She was designing, selling, and fabricating. And now Sue has concentrated on designing and selling window treatments. She uses local workrooms to fabricate her work. She also works with full-service interior designers by managing the entire custom window treatment portion of their design projects. One of the reasons I wanted to talk with Sue is because she took a little bit of a hiatus, change from her business. We talk about it on the podcast, about how she really went very part-time and took on a job, why she did it and what it did for her and what she's doing now. Sue lives not far from me in the Philadelphia suburbs, and it has been my pleasure to be able to spend some time with her, kicking some ideas around and talking about things in our businesses. And I really am happy to be able to share Sue with you today. I hope you enjoy hearing from her. Hi, Sue. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Good morning, Seal. I'm happy to be here.
And it's funny, when we were getting prepared for this, I always have to remind myself that just because I know someone doesn't mean I can do a good interview, because sometimes I forget to ask some of the questions. So I should start by saying that you and I have known each other for a number of years. You are actually one of the first people I met at WCAA many, many, many years ago when I first started.
Okay. I couldn't remember where we met. Okay.
Yeah, one of our very first meetings was at Janelle Deck's
oh my gosh.
place.
In Westchester.
Yes. And then you and I live close to each other, and we were in a local networking group together. Right. So we've had more than one connection. But I'm so glad you agreed to talk with me and tell a little bit about your story, because yours is different from other people's. And I'd love to explore that. So I'm going to start with, tell us a little bit about yourself and your business.
Sure. So my business is Eaton Interiors. I am a custom window treatment specialist. So I originally started out fabricating. I do not fabricate anymore. I learned along the way that I really enjoy the designing and the selling part of it. And the fabricating, I'm a good fabricator. I'm not a fast fabricator. Okay. It takes me a very long time to engineer things. And okay. so I kind of learned, where my strong points were, and the fabricating was stressing me out, frankly. It's a tough job.
Yeah, it's not. And I find the other part of it stressful. So it's always amazing to me how we have our different strengths and we either fight against them or work with them, one or the other.
I think it's a really important lesson for all of us to follow that, to recognize, to not be trying to force ourselves to be something that isn't easy for us. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where I got that. It was like, the stress was killing me. And then I initially learned, I think it was at one of you talk about going way back, one of the Cheryl Strickland conferences, mm-hmm. when she held them in Pennsylvania, that I was talking to people and they said, oh, well, I send this out to workrooms. And I was like, kind of, what? I couldn't believe that people did that. And
one can do that.
One can do that. And, we're all a little bit of control freaks, I think. And I was thinking, I'll send the panels out, but I'll do all the valances and everything myself. And then after a while I was like, why am I splitting this up and making my life difficult when that was what was slowing me down. Mm-hmm. So that was really a revelation.
So tell us a little bit about how you got started in the business as a fabricator and designer.
I got married in 1992 and had this big bay window in our house. And I started shopping for window treatments. And then I thought, I can sew. I hadn't sewn in a while, but I can sew. And if I could put in a zipper and if I can put in sleeves, how bad can this be? So I gave it a shot, and I will tell you, my mother thought I was nuts. She was like, okay, good luck with that. And I bought a McCall's pattern. I think probably Joanne Fabrics, and bought some fabric there, and the Rocklon lighting, and and made these swags and impressed myself and impressed my mother. And so then I, kind of did some more things for my house. Then we moved into a new house a few years later, and I started making my own here. And then, kind of we all, I think, have that same story of a little bit of then the neighbors started asking us to make stuff for them. And so I had quit my corporate job to stay home with my kids. And so I started doing it on the side. And then this was talk about a serendipitous moment. I was looking online and trying to find classes for how to make draperies and window treatments, and I came across Charlotte Strickland's school, and they had a traveling school. So I contacted them, and they said, I said, oh, is the traveling school going to be coming to Philadelphia at any time soon? And I don't remember who got back to me, but they said, oh, no, but we're having a conference in like a couple of months in Fort Washington. Well, so Seal and I are local. Fort Washington, it's a half an hour from my house. And the conference was held actually like literally 2 minutes from my parents' house. And I thought, okay, well, talk about your sign from God. So I attended that. And it was so great just being around so many people in the business. And, we were all so energized, and it was just a fascinating thing to me to be around all those people who loved what we did. And, and I really got the bug right then.
Okay. And so when you started this, like you just said, a lot of us started it because somebody else wanted us to do what we had already done in our own homes. Did you make a business plan? Did you have any goals in mind? How did you get this started?
Yeah, I really didn't create a business plan. And I guess to back up just a little bit, I'm an accountant by training. So, I worked in corporate accounting for probably 13, 14 years before I stayed home. I started staying home when I had my third child. And so I, even with the background in accounting, I did not have a formal business plan. I think that, the numbers never scared me, but actually sitting down and putting together a plan, I didn't really do that.
Okay. I know a lot of us have admitted in hindsight that we didn't really run our businesses like a business in the beginning. Did you, given your accounting background?
I think I did. I think I certainly was very conscious of profitability and of the big picture, and that the costs going into our businesses, and it's more than just fabric and fabrication and hardware. It's the overhead, and it's buying samples and things like that. So I think that I definitely did treat it like a business. I immediately bought QuickBooks, and in spite of having all of that corporate accounting background, I had never used QuickBooks. So I did set myself up on QuickBooks immediately.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting, because I tend to think of, well, if you know accounting, you know everything that has to do with numbers, and therefore you would also know QuickBooks.
Yeah, exactly. And QuickBooks is a fabulous tool. I highly, highly recommend it to everybody, and no matter what size your business is. But it just wasn't something that I had ever used in what I was doing. Okay. I was always in corporate accounting at a much, kind of larger scale.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about the change and growth of your business. I know we want to focus a little bit on the changes you made over the last couple years, but you're fabricating, you're meeting other fabricators. You've got a tribe now of people who do what you do. Where along the journey did you say, yeah, this is not I'm doing everything and I don't want to be?
probably the time that I was up till 3 a.m. finishing a job for the next morning. And I think that everyone is guilty.
I've never done that. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I am a bit of a procrastinator by nature. I was always cramming the night before the final. And I realized that I kind of kept putting off the fabrication. I would have everything.
Interesting.
And
okay.
I would be thinking, okay, today I'm going to do it. And I would keep putting it off. And what it was the engineering that would get me. If I can make something from a pattern, and I'll tell you, my favorite thing to make is a Kingston. Mm-hmm. And because that to me was like I felt like I conquered window treatments when I made a Kingston.
Right.
And I love to work with a pattern. I love swags. I love things like that. Roman shades, I hate them. I hate anything, that's straight that I have to, that is really, really exact. And so I found that I was avoiding the engineering. Once I got sewing, it was great, but I was avoiding the engineering. And I thought, you know what, maybe this is not my strong suit.
Okay. So I'm fascinated by this. When you were, because you're retail,
yes.
Were you then only selling styles that you really liked or liked fabricating, or did you try to talk people out of things? Oh, that would look terrible in that window.
No, I don't think I really did that. And I think I kind of always knew I could figure it out.
Okay. I could see myself I actually do like making Roman shades because I have control issues and like being able to make things very precise and exact. So I could say, really? Are you sure you wouldn't like a Roman shade in that window?
Well, and I also think too, that one of the kind of turning points for me was, once I learned about this magical world of farming things out, mm-hmm. that I the first time I did it, or, after doing it a few times, I thought, wait a minute, I can work with the client. I can design the thing. I can sell it. And then I can go home and sew it. And then I can go and install it. Or I can go out, design the thing, sell the thing, send everything off to somebody else, and then go out and sell another job. And that to me was more appealing.
Okay. All right. I love that you know yourself well enough to do that, because yes. I mean, all you have to do is look at the conversations on the library or Facebook conversations, and people are staying up till 3:00 in the morning way too often.
Right.
And so we were actually talking about this before we started to record. Sometimes our days just don't go the way we expect them to, and we get put off schedule. But when it's day after day after day like that, it can be exhausting. And it's a really good indicator that we're doing some things we don't want to be doing. So I love that.
Right.
You are growing your business and you're developing it. What were some of the challenges for you?
I think probably the biggest challenge, I think we all struggle with pricing. Mm-hmm. It's a luxury product and it's a little hard to wrap your head around that, but you have to get a hold of that. And I think I'm, was always fairly good with that because it's a money-making venture.
Right.
And getting business, that's just I truly, truly thought that I was going to network for a year and I was going to get all these jobs coming in, and then word of mouth was going to take over, and I was never going to have to market again. Mm-hmm. And I actually love to network. I'm kind of I enjoy it. So
and you're good at it. It's one of the ways I met you, so you are good at it.
Yeah. So I do really enjoy it, and it just and I found there was kind of this direct correlation that when I was busy, I was out a lot, and if I was out a lot, I was getting the business, and then. I'd be thinking, gee, business isn't quite coming in like it used to. And I think, you know what? I haven't been getting out. And so I would say those were probably the two biggest things. And it's getting a hold of the pricing and getting mm-hmm. the confidence to charge and just keeping the business coming in.
Okay. One of the things that I was always intrigued by in the beginning of my part of this industry was that there were people like you who were just selling window treatments and either hiring small workrooms or going to commercial workrooms. And I always found that fascinating that was a possibility. It was kind of like when people first find out that you make window treatments, like, oh, I didn't know people did that. And I thought it was fantastic because there were so many people who didn't need more than window treatments. And there were designers who don't know enough about window treatments that they can't incorporate that into their design. And I felt like when I met you and I finally understood what it was you were doing, I was like, that's brilliant, because it's a great way to help more than one customer base.
Yes. And I will tell you, the reason that my business is called Eaton Interiors and not something specific to window treatments was because when I started the business, I kind of always thought maybe I would go into full service interior design. And as I went along, I realized that there's enough to know about window treatments, and I don't know how full service interior designers do it.
I don't either. I'm so in awe. I really am.
The level of detail that they deal with and the number of things that they manage,
yes,
is mind-boggling. And so I thought, you know what, there's enough to learn about this and to know about this that I really don't want to go into interior design. And that was another good kind of lesson about myself, was that that while I think we all think, oh, wouldn't that be cool, I realized that it was just more than I wanted to manage.
Well, because even I was thinking the other day, it's not just flooring, it's engineered flooring, it's hardwood flooring, it's carpets, it's tile, the level. And I do understand that a good basic overall knowledge and then great tradespeople are really a designer's best friend, but you still need to know enough to make the choice in the first place. And I think I'm really happy in my window treatment world, knowing, shade mechanisms and fabric companies, and like, that's enough for me to know. So I that's why I think it's so fantastic that there is a niche where you can just, and I do hate that word, where you can focus on the window treatments and either help a homeowner or help a designer to create the final piece or the jewelry or however you want to describe it. But I always think I didn't understand that when I first learned about it. And I think it's brilliant.
It's kind of, it's somewhere between a workroom and a full service interior designer. And I sometimes find it a little bit hard to describe exactly what I do. And because people will think that either you only sell blinds or that you do fabricate. Right. And so I almost feel like I'm an interior designer for window treatments. Like,
I agree with you, because again, right back to what we were saying, there's so much to know. Is it, do you have to know the right fabrics? You have to know what is going to give privacy or light control if that's what they want. And if you don't sell hard treatments, then you can only come up with soft treatment solutions.
Right.
And so again, the amount of knowledge you have. And then you have tradespeople that you go to and say, okay, I need a Roman shade for this window, but I don't know what the best mechanism solution is. And then that's person's expertise that you need to rely on. So it's still, but again, you have to have a vast amount of knowledge to make the choices in the first place.
Well, and I think too that I think the general public understands the concept of an interior designer, that an interior designer is not making all your stuff for you. So
I agree with you.
So do you know what I mean? Like, there's kind of this distinction between, because there are workrooms who are retail. So they do what I used to do, which was, I design it for you and then I make it for you. But so I feel like that there's some, like I said, I just feel like I have a hard time. Like if I can talk to people, I can tell them that, but it's a little bit hard to narrow that down into a name or a tagline.
Yeah, it's not easy to make a tagline for that for your marketing. Right. So as you were going along and making these discoveries, okay, if I don't continue to network, I don't have people coming in. You made a decision that some other people in the industry have made and some have thought about making, and that is that you pretty much slowed your business down and you took a full-time job.
I did. So
how did you make that decision, and how did it feel when you made it?
So it was 2014, and at the time I had a freshman in college, a junior in high school, and a freshman in high school. So if you do the math there, that's, 3 kids in 4 years, and they were following each other through college. Mm-hmm. And so I basically was paying for 12 years of college over 8 years, I guess.
8 years. Yeah. Yeah.
And, so
everybody's dream.
Yeah, exactly. And the good news is I have one tuition payment left. So
yes,
we're almost there. So I just wanted something a little more steady coming, just kind of some steady income coming in. And at the time, a local CPA firm was advertising for a person part-time. Mm-hmm. So I took the job, and, it was kind of fun to be back in an office again and to have work friends and mm-hmm. somewhere to go every day. And,
right.
And to be learning again and using that kind of window treatments are technical too, but to be using the finance part of my mind. And so after a couple of years, they asked me to go full time, and I did go full time and was running the business on the side. And you kind of reached a point where I really wasn't even advertising anymore. So I was working with some designers that I do work with, and some repeat customers, and mm-hmm. a few new customers here and there. But it was hard for me to juggle. I'm kind of an all or nothing kind of girl, and
right.
I always felt a little guilty on both sides, like I wasn't servicing my clients as well as I could have, and that I wasn't. And I felt disloyal to my job at times. And they were the nicest group of people ever. Nobody ever. That wasn't coming from them. That was all, that was all coming from me. But so did it for 6 years. And, at different times I thought about giving up the window treatments entirely. And, there were times where I thought about quitting the job, and kind of went back and forth. And then this year, I really think with COVID that we all did some, self-examination and
agreed.
I was finding that, CPA, it's a tough job. It's a lot of hours. Mm-hmm. And I was, working at home, and then we're just kind of thinking about things. And I just kind of thought, this is not what I want to be doing for the rest of my working years. Mm-hmm. And so decided to leave and to ramp this back up.
Okay. I like what you just said. This is not what I want to be doing for the rest of my working years. You didn't say for the rest of my life.
Right.
And I've often asked about an exit plan, and I'll ask you about that. But I mean, I've had fabricators laugh and say, I'll probably die at my sewing machine or something like that. And if you're happy there, good for you.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that that's how everyone wants to get there. So you've made a plan to come back in, during a pandemic. So I'm going to tease you about that just a little bit.
Yeah, it's brilliant, huh?
How did it feel when you gave your notice and left the job?
It was emotional. It was much more emotional than I expected.
Okay.
The people I work with, and you're familiar with
right.
the firm. They are good people. Mm-hmm. They worked with a lot of nonprofit agencies, so I got to work with. I came from a very corporate background, and this was so different. And being able to work with people who were doing good work, and
right,
yeah. So I was very sure that this was what I wanted to do, but it was really hard. And I will tell you too, the stress of the pandemic was rough on me.
Yeah.
The working from home, and I'm an extrovert, and the one of my favorite memes that I saw during the pandemic was, have you checked on your extroverted friends? Because they're not okay. And,
I didn't see that one. Oh my gosh, that's perfect.
And I actually really, at the beginning, I was enjoying working from home, but over time I was feeling isolated, and I was, mm-hmm. and again, that was, I just, you didn't have that interaction from day to day. Mm-hmm. So kind of while I was making my decision, I did talk to some people. I called somebody that I knew who he's down in DC, and he's got a big, he's got a showroom, and he posted on Facebook one day something about, he just moved into a new building, and this was in like April of the pandemic, which started in March.
Right.
And so I emailed him. I'm like, can I talk to you, because I'm thinking about making this change, and he called me and he said, absolutely. He said, I'm 20% up over last year, and I just moved into a new building. So it was very interesting that the pandemic, while my first thought was, oh my gosh, I couldn't possibly quit right now.
Right.
Who's going to be spending money? But it's turned out to be the opposite, in that people are spending on their homes because they're not spending money on travel. And the other thing is, our market is in a position where they're probably not losing their jobs due to the pandemic.
Right.
Yeah,
but they spend a whole lot of extra time in their homes and may be ready to make some changes. Right.
So it was scary, but I tend to overanalyze a little bit.
Really?
A little bit, yeah. And I have not looked back.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. I also overanalyze. We've talked about that before, but I don't always have the confidence in a decision once it's made. Right. And sometimes that can be really unnerving, especially when some of the facts in front of us there are still question marks.
Yes.
And so to have the confidence of this was the right choice and I can move forward. Right. So what was the first thing you did to restart and refresh your business?
I did join a weekly networking group. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, and I reached out to all my old clients, and I did immediately get 2 jobs out of that. And someone else who said, how did she phrase it? She said her son, her 25-year-old son, had moved home for a little while. She said, I'm reclaiming my home in October. once he and his puppy move out. I did get some response immediately from that. And then the networking, I've got one potential client through that already. And I'm not, I'm still definitely in the rebuilding phase, but it's just the getting out there again. And like I said, with the networking that, I found a networking group that was still meeting in person. We actually meet at a pavilion in a park.
Oh, wow. What a great idea.
Yes. And that to me was important because Zoom is great, but I just feel like right now I need that face-to-face. So I was happy to find a group that was meeting in person.
Oh, that's great. And I think one of the things, and we talk about resiliency a lot on the podcast, but one of the things that I've just been amazed with is how resilient people are, how creative they are, and coming up with ways to still have something in person or still do something. And I think that's fantastic. So, I always ask the question, did you ever consider quitting? And I don't feel like what you did was quit. You made a conscious career choice, but continue doing the window treatments. That having been said, even as somebody who's restarting, at any point during the window treatment career, did you think about quitting?
Yes. Like I said earlier, I did at some point think about giving it up and just focusing on the accounting career again. But I will tell you, I was never, ever interested in being an entrepreneur. I was never interested in working for myself. I always liked the thought that I always worked for big corporations. And I always liked the thought that, every 2 weeks I'm getting a paycheck no matter what happens.
Right.
And never had that burning desire to be an entrepreneur. Then when I started doing it, I found that I liked it. And then I kind of went back a little bit to the security for a little while. And again, it's a learning, we were learning about ourselves. And I did learn that, I really wanted that back. I wanted that, that part of it is control. I wanted to be able to take control of my life and my earnings. And, in a corporate job or whatever, you're somewhat limited by your advancement. You're limited by the company.
And I think if the pandemic has taught us nothing, it should have taught us that there is no guarantee of any of those things. I mean, with so many businesses, being forced to shut down to keep us all safe, but then there were companies that went out of business because of it. And my husband works for a corporation, and that is something that we've talked about. Like, we assume there's a paycheck coming every week. Right. Doesn't mean it's going to. And so that, especially for those of us who need a little control, that idea that we are in control. If we don't go out, if we don't network, if we don't reach out to clients, then there won't be any income coming in. But at least we're the ones who are responsible for it. Right. And not someone else. Okay. Interesting. I want to jump in and take a moment to thank the sponsors who make it possible for me to bring you the podcast each week. My sponsors are people in the industry that I have personally had a connection to, purchased from, or used their services. So it makes it really easy for me to tell you about them and the great things that they have to offer. Because I feel so strongly about education in our industry, I'm thrilled that as the owner of the Curtains and Soft Furnishings Resource Library, I can use the resources of the library to help support the podcast. The library hosts the industry's largest curated collection of educational resources for the custom home furnishings professional. Membership to the library gives you access to a wealth of downloadable reference materials, videos, live events, as well as a community of support to help you develop your design, sales, and fabrication skills, and to grow or start a business. Join the library today at csfrl.org. Angels Linings would like to invite you to become part of their family. With reputable lining comes exceptional customer service. Trust them with your linings like I do. You get 2 Tootsie Pops with every bolt of lining you receive. For smiles, satisfaction, and a sugar kick all around, call Angels Linings at 1-800-450-9368. The Workroom Channel is the premier online training provider for professional fabrication skills. Go to theworkroomchannel.com to browse the selection of anytime access courses created by industry experts. Watch detailed demonstration videos, download companion materials, and participate in private course discussion boards with your instructor and classmates from around the world. Start your course path today at theworkroomchannel.com. If you've listened to the podcast, you know how much I've learned from Michelle Williams. And I think most of my guests have mentioned taking at least one of her classes or gotten coaching from her. Her business is Scarlet Thread Consulting. Michelle loves to work with creative business owners to help them understand all aspects of their business and to use their gifts and talents to make it profitable. Michelle is a strategic profitability coach certified in the Profit First methodology, and she can be reached at scarletthreadconsulting.com. I've also mentioned my membership with the WCAA, and I'm now a gold level sponsor, where education, networking, visibility, and industry discounts are just a few of the benefits that are offered to our members. The Window Covering Association of America is the only national nonprofit trade association that's dedicated to the window coverings industry and the dealers, decorators, workrooms, designers, and installers that make up our membership. Join today at WCAA.org. WCAA, where you are never in business alone. I've also been extremely fortunate to be able to work with Merrill Y. Landis Ltd. It's a family-owned and operated custom workroom and product distribution company to the trade with over 70 years of experience. And in addition to their custom work, they offer a wide variety of decorative drapery hardware. They offer stout and flare 21 fabrics. They have Roman shade operating systems and assembly kits. They have motorization and workroom supplies, and they serve both designers and workrooms. And you can check out the MYL Advantage at mylLTD.com. What would you say, I mean, we talked about some of the challenges. What would you say is the biggest success in your business?
I guess I'd kind of like to think that's still ahead of me.
I like that.
I ran my business for a long time, and, I never had any really breakout or outstanding years. It was always fine, but but I'd like to think that I'd like to think it's still ahead of me. And the one success would be, I think, that the fact that I got out of it and came back to it, I've learned.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that I've learned so much about myself, and that I came back to it feeling like I know what I need to do now.
I like that.
Yeah, like that I was in it before. I kind of knew what it was I was supposed to do to make it work, but I wasn't doing it.
Okay.
And so now I feel like I really know what I need to do, and I'm willing to do it. Interesting.
It's funny. I love when there are themes in my life. And I was reading I'm reading the 12-week year. And one of the things that they said was taking responsibility and not being a victim. And that's one of those things when I'm looking at, my P&L, or I'm looking at something, I'm going, all right, well, there's only one reason that looks like that, and that's on you.
Right.
But it's very easy to say, oh, but there's a pandemic. Oh, but the economy. Oh, but. When you know what you need to be doing and you're not doing it, there really isn't a whole lot else to say after that.
Yes. Yeah, I'm a thinker. There's a lot of thinking going on a lot of times, not so much doing.
See, we those of us who are extroverts should not be left alone for that long. We think too much.
I do find that interesting because, I am an extrovert, but I love to be inside my own head. I am really good at that. Yeah.
So thinking that your greatest success is still ahead of you, what's your definition of success?
So I'm at a point in my life, I'm 57 years old, and we want to retire, and we want to retire really comfortably. And that being said, we are in good shape, but we're not where I want to be. Okay. So my version of success, and I've thought long and hard about this through this whole process of what do I want? And what I want is to be able to retire comfortably. And by that, I mean, I want to be able to travel and not worry about spending the money on travel. I want to be able to eat out when I want to. We're debating what we want to do, whether we want to, sell the big house or move to the shore and maybe go to Florida and all these things. And we're kind of going back and forth. Right. We're sailors. We're tossing around the idea of living on a sailboat for part of the year. So, okay. That's my idea of success, is being able to enjoy these years. And even so, my plan right now is to do window treatments and then to be working on a scalable business that so maybe that for the first 5 years of retirement, I'm still working part-time, but that I can do it remotely. Okay. And that would give us the freedom to travel. So, so part of your exit plan is to build a business that is scalable, right. And also that you could sell, but consult to, right, as you leave it. Okay. Right. All right. I'm fascinated, Sue, how many of us in this industry go into it because we're creative. Yes. And how many people like you, like Michelle Williams, who have this brain that's hardwired for numbers and facts, and many other people, I'm just picking on the two of you, but that you can use the creativity that's a gift, but also run it like a business with that in mind, and knowing, oh yeah, I love picking out fabric, but I want to retire one day. So it's not just all fun and games and pretty stuff. It's a means to an end. Yes. And absolutely. I think it's brilliant. I really do. I don't know that enough of us who think of ourselves only as creative think about that part of it. And I think more of us have it than we realize. We kind of say that, oh, I'm creative, and that's all right, I'm just going to throw myself under the bus. That's my excuse. Oh, I'm creative. And so therefore, but I'm still working on that. But I love that you can have those creative talents. You've created a creative business. You work with things that are beautiful, but it's still a business and you're still running it like that. Yes. So I'm fascinated by this left brain, right brain thing. And, when I look back, I read, Gretchen Rubin, The Happiness Project. If you read that book, one of the things she said in there, and this has so stuck in my head, was that when you're looking to be happy, as an adult, think back to what made you happy when you were 8 years old or at whatever age. And I was crocheting, I was sewing, I was always doing something creative. And I have in my mind turned myself into such a business person, an analytical person, that I forgot that part of my personality. I didn't do anything creative for a long time. And then I had this when my kids were younger, I was, doing the window treatments. I was making handbags. I was like, all of a sudden it was like all this pent up creativity. And I learned about myself that I really do need to have some kind of creativity going all the while. And something that I heard recently from a business coach that I thought was fascinating was that I think as creatives, we want to be doing all the stuff in the business. And sometimes you need to be farming some of those things out. And that, we don't want to give up the creative piece. Well, coming up with business solutions is also a creative endeavor.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, if you frame it that way and think of it that way, then it does allow you to be creative.
Right. So I found that really fascinating. And it gave me a little bit, I guess a little bit of an insight into my own mind that I can be, I don't know, a creative and analytical. I don't really know how to describe it, but that creativity doesn't mean you're making something or you're designing something or drawing something. It can be using your mind in a creative way to find solutions.
Oh, I love that. I think that's a great way to describe that. I know that years ago you used Dream Draper quite a bit. Yes. And I was always impressed because when I was first getting started, that was really high tech and I thought it was really cool. So has technology been something that you've embraced?
Yes. I'm a little bit of a geek that way. I love technology. Yes.
What are some of the things you like to use within the business?
I think the biggest thing, and again, this goes to my background, is QuickBooks is just, a great tool. Mm-hmm. I love my iPad, and, one of my best investments was, I can't even think of the name. I think it's just called Measures. It's software where you take a picture of the thing and then you can draw the measurements right on it. So that to me I don't even take paper with me when I go to clients. I just take my iPad, and so I take the measurements right on there. And I used to have measuring forms that were great. Mm-hmm. They had kind of every measurement out there that you could possibly want to take for a window, but you had to pick which kind of window it was, and you had to have the right form. And so this way I just do it right on there. And then I also put the notes. I put the fabric we've chosen, any notes about, how high I want to mount them or whatever. And then I just take pictures too of, if we're picking hardware or whatever, I'll take a picture of the finial and take a picture of the fabric that we've chosen. And I'll lose the paper, and I'll never lose this stuff.
Right. Well, as someone who uses their iPad a lot too, I love that. So I get that. What 3 business items can you not live without?
I would say the iPhone and the iPad. I think we can probably lump those 2 together. And QuickBooks. Okay. I'm like a broken record here.
Is QuickBooks paying you?
And let's see, what else? QuickBooks.
It's networking. I think it's networking for you because that's.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I was thinking we were talking about. They had to be technology.
No, business in general.
Yes, people, and and I think having, I'm working with a coach. I think working with a coach is really important, and then also having people that you and I bounce things off of each other. Right. Having those people to bounce things off of.
I think that was probably. I've made some jokes about if I hadn't found the Pennsylvania chapter of WCAA, I wouldn't still be in business. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is having people who understand what you're going through and who can, if they can't help you solve the problem, they can at least put an arm around you and say, yeah, I've been there. It really stinks. So I think that support, especially as you said, it's one of the things about working in an office or working for another company where you get that support and feedback is built in. And we don't always have that as solopreneurs.
Right. And I think this industry, I think people are so willing to share.
Yes.
And I remember, and this was years ago, I remember talking to Susan Woodcock at, I think it was one of the conferences. Mm-hmm. And I said to her, I'm so impressed with how willing you are to share. And she said, I have always learned that I have always gotten more by sharing than I've given away. And I just thought that was such such a great concept. And I think the industry has come a long way in that respect too. Mm-hmm.
I think when there are people in the industry who have been in for a long time, and when I've interviewed them in the beginning, they were not finding that. I remember Margie Nance saying she called a workroom to say, could I come and visit your workroom and see how you operate? And they laughed at her and hung up. Like,
right.
I think we're not doing that. So I do think that the one of the advances of the internet too was that we were able to find, like you said, you found Cheryl Strickland. I was part of a group that I got a group email at the end of every day, and it was the Professional Association of Custom Clothiers, because I was making bridal headpieces. And every day at the end of the day, I'd get this forum of letters, and someone posted about the conference that was at the it was at Valley Forge.
Yes.
I didn't go to the one in Fort Washington. I was at the one at Valley Forge. I would not have known about it and found, my first class was a class on empire balances with Beth Hodges and Pam DeCure. And it was, it just changed my life, because it was like, okay, now I get it. So I think that sharing within our industry is just continuing. And I love that we know there are people we can reach out to.
Yes.
Yeah. So what do you do extremely well?
I my numbers. That's my strong suit. And I think I'm good at looking at the profitability and recognizing what you need to do to be profitable, and that you need to be willing to charge the right amount.
Okay. All right. What do you not do so well?
Fabricate.
Oh, good thing you found the solution to that.
Well, the funny part about that, the engineering part of the fabricating is that my father is a brilliant engineer, and apparently that gene did not make it to me. It skipped my younger sister has it. I think it skipped right over.
Okay, I love that. What about you would surprise people?
That in spite of my height, I can't play basketball. 5'9" and
that's funny.
Not good.
In what ways do you think you're resilient?
I think this last move that I made was just, I had to prove, I feel like I have to prove to myself that I can do it. And it would have been easy to take the path of least resistance and continue what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And I recognized that wasn't what I wanted, and that it served its purpose. It absolutely served it. It got me through, 3 kids through college. So it was a good thing to do. But it also helped me learn that wasn't what I wanted to do. So being willing to make that change again.
Okay. I love to ask about what traits my guests think are important to an entrepreneur, and I want to hear that from you. I also would love to hear what you would recommend to someone who was thinking about making a change like you made, and how they could maybe feel a little more confident in making that decision.
So I think that in some respects, you have to look at where you are in your life and what your current goals are. And I remember reading something somewhere, I don't remember where I got this, but it was that every job should have a purpose. And I took that job for the purpose of getting my kids through college. And I reached the point where I was losing my passion for that. Mm-hmm. And so it came to a point where I thought, okay, this is the time.
Purpose has been served.
Right. And I could have very well, like when I first got back into it, I was really excited about it. And over time, I felt like I'd it had run its course for me. Mm-hmm. So I think you have to examine that. And, as parents, there are times we have to do things that we're not doing it because it's our passion. We're doing it because we have to pay the bills. Mm-hmm. And so there's no shame in that. You need to do what you need to do for your family and that point in your life. And I'm very happy that I have the freedom to make that change, and that I've got both sets of skills. Like that's, you talk about gratitude, and that's one of the things that I feel like I'm grateful for, the fact that I have that analytical and that creative, and that I can combine the two. Okay.
I love that.
Yeah.
So I will put links to your social media accounts into the show notes.
Yes.
And my last question for you is, what advice would you give to someone who's new in the business or someone who's been in business for a while?
I would say that first is know your numbers, learn to understand your numbers. And I think a lot of people say, I'm not a numbers person, I'm not a money person. What you need to know for your business isn't terribly complicated. It's the math. I always told my kids that the math that I used for window treatments is a lot harder than the math I used for accounting. And
I agree with that.
And there are some concepts you have to get down. And if you need help with that, get the help that you need with it. That I think you can have a bookkeeper, have an accountant, have somebody that you check in periodically to make sure that you're on track. You don't have to understand. You don't need to know accounting to the level that I know accounting.
Right.
You need to know what you need to know to make sure that your business is profitable. And it's very important to reach out to people who can help you with that.
I think that's really important. And I think that's one of the hardest things for most of us to do, because your reaction to the bay window was how hard can this be? And I think a lot of us look at running our businesses that way, when in fact, it isn't necessarily easy to do the accounting. We should be paying somebody to do that for us so that we can focus on the other parts of it. Yeah.
Right. And that kind of leads into the next thing, which I think is really important, is to be willing to spend money on your business.
Yeah.
When I first got into the business, I remember, kept thinking, oh, I'm going to wait and do this. I'll do this later. And then I ended up buying Dream Draper and QuickQuote, which is the accounting software that goes along with Dream Draper, and it tailors it to our business. And I was gonna wait to buy it, and I thought, what am I waiting for? I need this right from the get-go to get things done correctly.
And I think that it is hard, especially if the money isn't coming in. But if you don't spend money on certain things, it's not going to help your business to grow.
And I think one way you can look at that is that, as you're starting your business, say, I'm going to set aside, $10,000 or pick a number that you're willing to put into the business before you kind of start making money, because it can get frustrating in the beginning because you're making money and everything you're making is going to buy something else that you need.
Right.
And if you've designated X number of dollars from your personal savings that you're going to use, then you can go ahead and make those purchases without having to feel guilty about everyone.
Right. Exactly. Sue, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me this morning. It's always nice for me to get to see you and talk with you. Yes. And I feel like I'm getting to share you with everyone who listens to the podcast. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, good. I hope you enjoyed hearing Sue's journey. I was fascinated when she reached out to me and told me she was thinking about revamping her business. And Sue and I meet occasionally to have coffee and just talk. And like she said, bounce things off of each other. And I'm so excited for her to see where her journey takes her. So I hope you enjoyed hearing today's podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great day.